The desert stretched wide and endless, painted in shades of gold and rust under the burning afternoon sun. The wind moved freely here, carrying dust, secrets, and the echoes of lives long forgotten. On a narrow trail cutting through the plains, a lone rider pushed his horse forward, mile after mile, as if the land itself were calling him back. His name was Ethan Cole, though few remembered it now. Years ago, that name had meant something in the small frontier town of Red Creek. It had belonged to a young man with dreams bigger than the desert sky, dreams of land, family, and peace. But the Wild West had a way of grinding dreams into dust. Ethan's horse stumbled, exhausted from the long journey. He slowed it down, patting its neck gently. "Easy, boy," he murmured, his voice rough from days without proper rest. Ahead, the faint outline of buildings shimmered in the heat. Red Creek. The sight tightened his chest. He hadn't planned on coming back. In fact, he had sworn never to return. But some promises refuse to die, no matter how deep you bury them. As Ethan rode closer, memories flooded his mind. Wooden sidewalks, the sound of laughter outside the saloon, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery that once stood near the creek. Most of all, he remembered the night everything changed. The night betrayal wore the face of a friend. Red Creek looked smaller than he remembered. Time had not been kind to it. A few buildings leaned as if tired of standing, and the paint on most doors had peeled away under years of sun and sand. The town felt tense, like a held breath. People noticed him immediately. A stranger never went unseen in a place like this. Conversations stopped. A man outside the general store narrowed his eyes. A woman pulling her child closer stepped back into the shadows. Ethan felt their stares but did not meet them. He kept his gaze forward, jaw set, posture calm but ready. He dismounted near the saloon, tying his horse to a post worn smooth by decades of use. The saloon doors creaked as he pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of cheap whiskey. A piano played softly in the corner, though the music faltered when the patrons noticed him. Ethan walked to the bar. "Water," he said simply. The bartender hesitated. In Red Creek, men ordered whiskey, especially men who looked like Ethan, dust-covered, armed, and clearly carrying trouble. Slowly, the bartender filled a glass and slid it across. Ethan drank deeply, feeling the cool relief spread through him. "You passing through?" the bartender asked, trying to sound casual. Ethan placed the glass down. No, that single word settled heavy in the room. Outside, unseen by Ethan, 3 men watched from across the street. They wore matching dusters and carried themselves with the confidence of men who believed the town belonged to them. The Black Ridge Gang. Red Creek's curse. "She's back," one of them muttered. Another spat into the dirt. "Thought he was dead." "Doesn't matter," the third said coldly. "If he's here, it means trouble." Ethan stepped back into the sunlight, unaware that eyes followed his every move. He walked slowly through town, past places that stirred old wounds. The empty lot where his family's ranch hands once gathered. The burned remains of what had been his home. He stopped there, boots sinking slightly into the sand. This was where it had happened. Where his father had been shot. Where his mother had screamed. Where Ethan had learned that justice was not always delivered by lawmen. A shadow fell across him. "Didn't think you'd ever show your face again, Cole." Ethan turned to see Marshal Henry Dawson, older now, his hair gray, his badge dull. The man looked tired. Tired of the town, tired of fighting a losing battle. "Didn't think I would either," Ethan replied. Dawson studied him closely. "You should leave. Things are different now." Ethan met his gaze. "Different how?" "The Black Ridge Gang runs Red Creek. I keep the badge, but they keep the power." Dawson lowered his voice. "If they know you're here, they won't let you walk out." Ethan's expression hardened. "They already know." Dawson sighed. "Then you're a fool." "Maybe," Ethan said quietly. "But I didn't come back to be smart." As the sun began to set, Red Creek prepared for night. Lanterns flickered on, casting long shadows across the street. The wind picked up, lifting dust into swirling patterns. Ethan checked his revolver, the familiar weight steadying his nerves. He wasn't here for revenge alone. He was here because some wrongs demanded to be faced. Because the past had teeth, and it had finally caught up with him. From the edge of town, the Black Ridge Gang gathered, confident and armed. They believed the desert always swallowed its ghosts. But they were wrong. Ethan Cole stood in the middle of Red Creek, the wind tugging at his coat, the past at his back, and justice burning in his eyes. The first chapter of his return had begun, and by dawn, the frontier would remember his name once more. Night settled over Red Creek like a heavy blanket, muting the colors of the town and sharpening every sound. Lanterns swayed gently outside the saloon, their yellow light stretching across the dirt road. The wind carried a chill now, whispering through the cracks of old buildings as if warning the town of what was coming. Ethan Cole stood alone in the center of the street. His shadow stretched long behind him, merging with the darkness. He could feel it, the tension, thick and electric. Years ago, he had stood in this same place as a frightened young man. Tonight, he stood as someone forged by loss, solitude, and the unforgiving Wild West. Bootsteps echoed from the far end of the road. Then more. Shapes emerged from the darkness. 5 men, moving with the careless confidence of those who believed fear ruled this town. At their center walked Caleb Ridge, leader of the Black Ridge Gang. His smile was slow and cruel, the kind that came from knowing the odds were in his favor. "Well, I'll be damned," Caleb said. "The ghost of Red Creek finally rides home." Ethan's hand rested near his revolver, but his voice remained calm. "You should have left this town alone." Caleb laughed. "This town was empty when we took it. Weak. Just like your family." The words cut deep, but Ethan did not flinch. The wind howled suddenly, kicking up dust between them. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Then a gunshot shattered the silence. The street exploded into chaos. Lanterns swung wildly as bullets tore through the night. Ethan moved with purpose, every step measured, every shot deliberate. Years of survival on the frontier had sharpened his instincts. One man fell, then another, their confidence turning to panic. From the porch of the jailhouse, Marshal Dawson watched, torn between duty and fear. When he saw one of the gang aiming from behind a wagon, he raised his rifle and fired. The sound echoed like a declaration. Red Creek would not stay silent anymore. Caleb Ridge backed away, fury replacing his grin. "This ain't over," he snarled. Ethan advanced, eyes steady. "It ends tonight." A final exchange rang out. When the smoke cleared, Caleb lay wounded in the dirt, his power broken. The remaining men fled into the darkness, carrying the truth with them, that Red Creek was no longer theirs. Silence returned, broken only by the wind. Townsfolk slowly emerged from hiding, their faces filled with disbelief. Ethan holstered his gun, the fire in his chest finally easing. At dawn, he saddled his horse. Marshal Dawson approached. "You could stay," he said. "Help rebuild." Ethan looked back at the town one last time. "Some men are meant to pass through," he replied. As he rode away, the sun rose over Red Creek, painting the land in new light. The dust settled, but the story remained, carried by the wind across the endless American frontier.